You're listening to NT Paranormal After Dark. Nothing normal about it.
Hey guys, what's up? So we're back for our next podcast today. So happy Thursday, everybody. And we had to go with another backup topic because everybody in my group never has the same freaking schedule. So we are not doing the
possession.
The possession debate today, which makes me sad, but you know, we always have good backup topics ready to go. So
well, good is subjective.
I think today's topic's pretty good. I've been wanting to talk about ancient aliens for a while. And so has your husband. We've got Stephen on the phone. Are you with us, Stephen?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. And of course, Sarah's over here. You know, I'm surprised Kat hadn't said something yet, like she did last time. Where's Sarah at?
It's because I'm the best. Everybody wants to know where I am.
I think you're the personality of the show. So we're talking
That's
about...
awful.
Maybe you're the reason behind the Fermi paradox then, why they haven't come here to visit us, which is one of the topics we'll kind of cover lightly for
paradox
ancient aliens. So I don't know how many of you guys out there subscribe to Ancient Aliens or follow it at all. I would say I dabble a little bit. I like the show. It amuses me.
Stephen's brother is very much into this stuff.
Right, and Stephen is your husband.
Yes.
And you invited him onto the show to discuss with us ancient aliens.
Yeah, and he's been on, I think, one investigation with us.
Yes, you went with us to Lipan, didn't you, Stephen?
Yes, Lipan.
Oh, he went to...
Evil Bird.
Yeah, he went to Antioch, too, but Allie didn't want to get out of the car, remember? So he sat in the car with her.
Oh, that's right. Stephen pushed out and stayed in the car.
Oh, he was just being nice.
Exactly what happened.
And I believe you literally scared the crap out of Allie while you were in the car?
Yeah, that was my goal for staying, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're excused.
So, Stephen, what's your interest in ancient aliens?
I like ancient stuff in general, but I kind of like the parallels that people draw between different societies and asking the bigger question, like, why did all these people develop these similar things, and could they have had some sort of outside influence?
Yeah, that's kind of one of my bigger sticking points on why I even think Ancient Aliens is plausible at all, is because of like the similarities between cultures that couldn't have interacted together. And like we were kind of talking about before, is I hate that like one of the main points is that the human species couldn't possibly have been smart enough to develop tools that early or figured out how to build pyramids. I think that's like selling ourselves pretty short. But
definitely not giving us enough credit.
Yeah, but I do like, you know, when I was doing some of my research and reading is, you know, the Aztecs, they lined up their pyramids to specific astrological bodies, specifically, and then the Egyptians did the exact same thing with pyramids and astrological bodies, and they paralleled each other, but they had no contact with each other.
Yeah.
At all, as far as we know. It may turn out we were a more seafaring race far before then, but I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, that's actually some of the most compelling stuff to me, is the parallels between societies that had no contact.
Well, I mean, it's certainly possible that they could have been influenced, and the use of similar astrological orientations is interesting. But, I mean, sometimes I think that maybe we just kind of came to similar conclusions, and we would always come to similar conclusions, because we're all human, we're all people, and when presented with different stimulation, no matter whether we've heard about the right response or not, we oftentimes will make similar decisions.
I think that's pretty fair, too, because, I mean, as far as human history is known, we all originate from the same locations anyway, and we spread out from there, so maybe we carried some of that knowledge along with us as we spread out, and then just kind of evolve from there along, like, parallel paths.
Well, and it's like, if you ask someone a question, say you do those murder mystery things, everyone's gonna, like, often everyone comes up with the right answer. They don't have to have communicated with each other. We're just people, and we have sort of a similar thinking process.
Similar?
Similar.
Similar?
Shut up, Brad.
Like simulation, or similar like is in the same?
That could be a simulation, maybe that's why.
Yeah, this is all VR.
I choose the red pill.
We're in the Matrix. Which
I
pill
want
is?
cheat codes.
Which one's the pill that lets me go back and not know about anything?
It's the blue pill.
I want the blue pill. I'm blue pill.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, I mean, the whole parallel thing. That's if I was really gonna dig into it, and I was gonna say, okay, this is a possibility, which I'm not ruling out. In my eyes, the idea of aliens is actually more believable than the idea of like divine ghosts and divine design and things like that, because one kind of involves like magic and all this dogma. One is just kind of nature and evolution just expanded to a universal scale instead of just a local scale. But I mean, the possibility that not only were we visited but maybe seeded back then, it's absolutely possible, but there's just not a lot of evidence. I don't see where other people see evidence. I see things like a lot of coincidence and things like that.
It might be evidence, but like we talk about all the time, the difference between evidence and proof.
Right, it's evidence, it's not proof.
Sorry, I'm having allergies, so.
That's cool. What do you think about the Fermi paradoxes? Like, how do you think that fits into the overall scale of ancient aliens?
Isn't Stephen?
Either one of y'all. I wish.
Go ahead. I can't remember what that is. So.
Oh, the Fermi paradox is the one where there's like billions and billions of planets. Why haven't they? If there were aliens, surely we would have seen them or would have interacted with them. But it goes along with that Great Barrier one, where the more technologically advanced your civilization gets, like there's barriers you have to cross, whether it be a plague or a natural disaster or war, and they think there's like this great barrier towards the end where most civilizations don't pass it. They're not advanced enough to get through.
That's not the Fermi paradox.
That's the Great Barrier.
Oh, that's the Great Barrier. I was talking about the Fermi paradox.
That's one where there's so billions of planets. Well, why haven't the aliens showed up yet?
Right.
Just miss each other.
Yeah.
Hi, Jen.
Hey, how's it going? The Fermi paradox in like its fullness is that mathematically aliens have to exist because there's so many suns out there that are similar to our sun that have planets around them that are similar to Earth that could start a intelligent species. So by now,
mathematically there should be aliens.
Mathematically, we should
aren't.
have run into another something living in our own galaxy by now, but we have not. So it's actually a paradox.
What I was saying is it ties into the Great Barrier, because a lot of people think that's why we haven't found aliens. It's because they've reached this barrier and haven't been able to cross it. Oh, Julie, that's a famous quote. Was it Asimov? That any technology sufficiently above your own is tantamount to magic.
No, that's Clark that said that. Yeah, Asimov did the
robot rules.
Yeah, the rules.
Yeah,
the laws for robotics.
Technology could be mistaken for I mean, could you imagine what they'd think if you had a lighter?
Well, I mean, in that
the year 12.
One of the big points, and it's brought up in Chariots of the Gods, which is like the main documentation for it, was written by Eric von Däniken. And like his big sticking point is Ezekiel 1 and all the descriptions that are in there. And the way the description, it's like crazy detailed how the descriptions are of God coming down from heaven, and it had like
Ezekiel
a metallic bottom,
a
and it had these wheels, and like he describes actual machinery along with the angelic stuff. But he never once says like it's aliens or it's a craft or whatever. But the way he's describing it is if you were describing what we see as UFOs.
Well, that's
so that's the classic. Well, could this machinery be? Could this science be mistaken as magic?
Well, there's a lot of that stuff in Revelation. Like there's the one about the two Jews that are going to profess that Jesus is God, and it's going to be able to be seen all around the world at once. And if you think about it, back in the day, they were like, "Oh, well, that's really loud. Can you turn my headphones down?" There's no possible way for everyone in the world to see this at one time. And then 24-hour news became a thing. So a lot of people assume they're describing things from the future. They just don't have the words for it. They don't.
I mean, they also believed in magic. So magic exists, and you could see somebody on the other side of the planet because you have magic.
I mean, it makes sense to me. I mean, anything that you don't sufficiently understand is going to be mistaken for some kind of witchcraft or magic. I mean, Galileo was threatened to be taken to be burned several times because, and he was very careful in the way he did things. But the big problem with every scientific discovery that Galileo made about planetary movements and bodies moving through space, it was like, no, that's witchcraft.
That's in church we always called it God of the gaps. I don't understand it, therefore God. I can't explain it, therefore God. It's just God of the gaps.
But it's got to the point that as you're able to explain more and more, God diminishes instead of redefining what you see as God. And I think that's something that we kind of touched on a little while ago. Is like, I'm fine with atheism and if you don't believe, you don't believe is the thing. But if you don't believe just because science is a thing, you're kind of going about it half-assed. Like, because, you know, maybe there is some kind of divine hand that works there or something like that, but it ultimately works through like some level of physics, or, you know, there's some physicality to it.
It works under the rules of science.
Right. Yeah. It's just, it's not magic anymore. You know, it's like knowing how the magician does a card trick.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it any less impressive that he's able to do it, but, you know, he's not really bending the laws of physics. So one of the big proponents of the ancient aliens and the early astronauts is the Aaron von Däniken guy who wrote Chariot of the Gods, which I read it a long time ago, and it was a good book, and it brought up some really good points, but over time, almost every single good point that was made has been totally debunked. He didn't do as much research as was really claimed at the forefront of the book. He really wasn't knowledgeable in a lot of things. And then later on, when he was pressed about some of the personal experiences and trips that he claimed to have taken some trips through some tunnels under the Vatican, and saw certain things that they had hid there. And and later on, he's like, well, I took liberties with the story. And then a little bit later, he's like, yeah, it never happened. And then the other main proponent for it that everybody is the aliens guy,
the hair guy.
Yeah, Giorgio. I can never say his last name.
It doesn't matter. Everyone knows who you're talking about.
Yeah, so I looked up what his education was.
Oh yeah.
And it turns out that Giorgio has a bachelor's in sports information and TV.
So he's a real alien expert.
Absolutely, and he's got like 3 different alien shows. But
me and Stephen used to watch, like, the first couple of years we were married, we used to watch Ancient Aliens all the time. And, like, I didn't realize it had been on that long.
It's been on forever. It's got, like, 23 seasons or something like that. So, Stephen, what's your favorite Ancient Aliens theory?
Let's see.
What's the closest thing to a smoking gun for you? Besides the parallel thing that we kind of talked about.
I like I can't remember, I think it was somewhere in South America where they found those 2 little golden idols, the ones that look like airplanes. And when they put them into measuring devices, they found that these things were more aerodynamic than people of that time would have mapped.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, and it was they had got the design off of like some carvings or something, and then I think they ran it through like a 3D printer or something.
Well, I think they actually found a golden idol for one of them.
Oh, okay. I do remember seeing something on that.
I used to watch that show all the time.
Yeah, and I remember they tested it. They actually flew. It was like a little paper airplane.
They made little model airplanes out of it, and it flew. It was aerodynamically accurate, and the designs on it were actually showing the way the air would flow along the wings. It was very interesting.
I don't know that necessarily says that aliens visit us back then to show us that technology, other than maybe we actually just were closer to figuring out flight a lot earlier on than what we think we did.
There could have been an Aztec Da Vinci there. We don't know.
Well, and that's something all 3 of us seem to agree on, is that it's not unlikely that humans were way more advanced at a way earlier time than we think they were.
Well, and I mean, common understanding is that Mesopotamia, Sumeria, was like the first human civilization. But we, like, regularly now, our current technology is advanced enough finally that we're starting to see that we were more advanced than we thought we were back then. Like we're finding tools that are carbon dating to even like further back than when we think we invented tools.
Well, I mean, just last month of July, they published that they found bread that was 4,000 years too old. It was 14,000 years old instead of being 10,000 years old. We shouldn't have known how to bake bread back then.
I bet that's got some wicked mold on it if it's not Mrs.
Probably.
Baird's.
I wonder what the recipe is, though. I'd probably try it.
Well, that's interesting because people talk about when we became an agricultural society instead of hunters and gatherers.
Right.
That would put it way back before we thought that happened.
4,000 years is a pretty big swing from...
They actually, the farming thing, I was doing some research about the ancient alien stuff, and I was going on the premise of like lost technology from older civilization. And I found some research they were doing which was showing agriculture as early as 23,000 years ago, when the common consensus was around about 10 to 12,000 years ago. But they're finding farms, areas that look like they were primitive agricultural farms. The sites of them are almost 23,000 years old.
Yeah, in like Julie said on the live stream, is that we've lost so much knowledge just through wars and conquering and stuff. Like when we
burning libraries and such.
The Library of Alexandria, like we were far more technologically advanced as a species at that point in time, and then there's no telling how far that set us back. And then when Rome got sacked, like we found out that they were actually on the verge of steam power.
Yeah,
and I'm glad Stephen brought up the thing about the little aerodynamic airplanes, because I think we may have actually, not like big scale flight like transatlantic or anything like that, but we might have had gliders and stuff before, because one of the big ones is the Nazca lines, that's the one that's always fascinated me.
Those
because
are really cool.
Yeah, because it's like 1,200 feet across, over like 8 miles. There's all these huge designs, and it's not like this big super. It's not like they're like, how did they make them? Because they just did it with rocks or whatever.
It's like, no, why did they make them?
Right.
Well, why and how did they make them so accurate?
Right, because they're accurate like to the millimeter, and like perfectly symmetrical. So it took some higher level math to map that out, which isn't out of our realm. But to be able to look down on it and do that would have been, unless we had some way to elevate. And also,
we can make complex crop circles now with just graph paper and a pencil, and we never have to see above it. You don't necessarily need to be, in the sky to see the design on the bottom to know that it's going to come out right.
But we are a sky-faring species now.
That's true.
So there's a point to do, like, if you did it back then, you could make these you could still make the complex crop circles, but no one would ever see it.
What's the point?
So there'd be no point
in
the hoax.
They would have seen them.
I don't know.
Is that how we communicated with our alien overlords?
Probably.
Crop circles and Nazca lines?
Josh lives over here. Get that guy.
Do they write graffiti like we do? Amy's a whore.
So what do you think about the ruins at Sacsayhuaman in Peruvian Andes? Do y'all know about that one?
No.
That's one of the cool ones I looked up.
Steven, do you know about that?
No, not that one.
So
Brad's just trying to impress us with his knowledge.
I am, because I can read good in things. But
that's a good question. Are the Nazca lines aligned with the stars?
that one I'm not for sure
I'll look it up
on.
real quick.
I know it. I know it's like right in between that Mayan Aztec sort of empire.
I wouldn't be surprised if they were.
Spell Nazca.
Nasca, like NASCAR without the R. Anyway, so the Sacsayhuaman in Peruvian Andes, it's pretty cool. It's these 360-ton rocks, which is actually heavier than some of the rocks used to build the pyramids. And they basically move these over a period over a distance of 20 miles to get them to this location that they were putting together. And okay, so it's always a mystery how they made that, and I think we make a bigger deal out of that than we really should. We've shown that we can move heavy materials over long distances with primitive tools. That's fine. But the brickwork that they made at the actual site, it's like laser precise. You have to use you literally have to use a laser to measure the precision of the lines of how they cut and put these things together, because it's within millimeters and it's almost airtight. Yeah,
there was an episode about that.
Yeah, it's really crazy, and they were trying to reproduce it, and they were having problems doing it even with like modern technology, and then they tried to go back and do it with tools they would have had at the time. I kind of feel like if we don't have an accurate, like we're already proving we don't have an accurate record of what tools we had at the time, because we keep proving ourselves wrong. So maybe they're a little off there, but they definitely didn't have anything as advanced as what we have now, power tools and stuff. And they were having a hard time with that type of stone because they found the quarry where they had got all these rocks from and had shaped them and took them over there. And they could not, even with modern power tools, figure out how to get these things to align so as precise as they did, to the point that they're completely airtight. So I think that one's pretty cool because I think the closest we could get to it was actually cutting it with a laser, which would be nuts. What do you think of that?
I think it might come down to something like the whole concept of lost technology. I mean, we've had things lost like within the last 500. We forgot how to cure scurvy for 500 years. Like they figured it out in like 1490s, and then it was continually proved and disproved.
Throw oranges at them.
Yeah, don't you just eat limes?
Yeah, it's just vitamin C.
Oh.
We knew how to fix it, and then we forgot it, and then we figured it out again in the 1700s, and then we lost it, figured it out again in the 1800s, and then lost it again. So it's possible that a lot of these structures had people on them who had the problem of moving these big stones and shaping these big stones, and they figured out how to do it on site. But I mean, it's not like you're going to use that kind of technology anywhere else.
I would use it to build a death ray.
As you had your problem.
Update on the Nazca lines. The guy that was researching these in 1941, he spent a whole day out there. He looked up from his work to catch the sunset in direct alignment with the line. Kozak called the 310 square mile stretch of high desert the largest astronomy book in the world. So yes, they align with celestial bodies. Sorry.
The thing I find crazy about our ancient ancestors doing so much with the okay, so if they pick Orion, right, and everybody lines it with it's a pretty dominant, and you can see it from all the hemispheres during different types of days.
Anyone can spot it, like it's easy to spot.
But there are a lot of things with the Aztec and Mayan culture, with the Egyptian culture, and the Sumerian culture, where they are referencing constellations that can't be spotted with the naked eye.
And why is it impossible that they would have invented some sort of telescope, is my question.
Well, I mean, even with even with primitive telescopes, like there are some that we have to use like radio telescope technology to get all the stars that are actually referenced in some of those things. And in that one always kind of catches my eye where I'm kind of like left scratching my head a little bit, is like, how did they come up with that? How did they know that was a thing?
It'd be funny if they didn't, and they were just putting these things at random.
Just random dots, and we're looking
really
far enough. Yeah. Well, I think if you look at any point in the sky and you go far enough with a telescope, you're gonna find a dot. So it's us filling in the gaps where they're just putting a dot.
Yeah.
The other.
They could have had some pretty decent telescopes. I mean, we've had glass for 7,000 years, so I mean, it wouldn't be unheard of.
Well, it could also be a process of human evolution too. What if our eyes could see different spectrums of colors and see farther back then? Because
we had 5 cones.
Right, because we were hunter-gatherer. We needed the ability to see better, and so at night, remember, there's no light pollution
Yeah.
at all, so the sky is just naturally brighter on clear nights anyway.
Well, and the atmosphere is different, so it might have been even super clear, because...
Yeah, there's really no way to know, because there was no pollution at all. There was no light pollution at all. Our eyes could have actually functioned different to see like a broader spectrum at that point in time. So that's one of the big questions that gets posed a lot is, how could we do this without aliens? Well, we were more resourceful, and
So people are
things were
using
different.
aliens basically as God of the gaps. We can't explain how they did it, so it must have been aliens.
And I kind of see that happening too. People now that we are a smarter species, more of us don't like going to God. We like going to science.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out that aliens are just another placeholder, so that you don't have to say you believe in magic or God or whatever. And I don't know. And like I said at the beginning of the show, it's almost easier for me to believe aliens over God because there's no magic involved. But it's really smart that you brought that up, that it's just another placeholder. It's just another unknown that we don't understand, so we kind of throw it in there.
And see, I hate that, though, that people, I don't understand it, therefore I'm going to say it's, without even trying to look harder. It just gives them a reason to be intellectually lazy.
What was the stuff that you guys looked up on Anunnaki?
The Anunnaki, is that, how do you say it, Stephen?
Anunnaki?
Anunnaki, that's it.
Unagi.
Like the Anunnaki and then the Nibiru and the
They have the Norwegians or whatever, the blonde, super tall ones. Those are the ones that are harvesting our sex stuff.
Oh, I don't know if that's the Anunnaki I looked
No,
up.
those are the Nordics. They're the ones that do the breeding program for humans. Are Anunnaki, are they the Greys? The ones...
Oh, there's like the 3 different kinds of aliens.
There's a few different ones, because you got the Sumerians who have, they've got their model of the solar system that's far too advanced for them to have. So somebody like the Anunnaki or the people of planet Nibiru, that comes around every 10,000 years.
From what I read, the Anunnaki are the ones from Nibiru.
Oh, maybe that's the same thing.
But there's this planet that has, instead of a circular orbit, it has a...
It's elongated to like 3,600 years it takes to go around the sun.
Right.
But I just don't get the whole belief that we would have missed something like that. There's a planet around our sun that we haven't noticed.
Right,
Like, that makes
would be
no
on the
sense
same
to
orbit.
me.
Well, and I mean, we can see all the way over into the Andromeda galaxy with radio telescopes and Hubble and stuff. So, if there's any planet that would be within our own solar orbit,
We'd have seen it.
Yeah,
No, the ones with perpendicular orbits are a little bit harder to notice.
well, yeah, they're harder to notice. We might not notice them as revolving around our sun, but
we notice them.
I would think anyway. I don't know. I don't work for SETI.
Or NASA's lying to all of us.
Well, I mean, they're
They
lying about
are.
landing on the moon and the Earth being flat, so who can trust them?
The conspiracy in my head isn't did we land on the moon? It's what did we find there?
Oh, yeah, you were talking to me about that the other day, but we need to do a whole podcast over that.
Almost, yeah. But
The Transformers.
do what? No,
Robots in disguise.
I was actually, I went down a YouTube rabbit hole, and then I went and backed it up with actual research one day. But there was a documentary I watched, and we had taken pictures of a certain sector of the moon or whatever, and the pictures that were released to the public were super blurry. But when we did another pass, they were showing the pictures that aren't like the standard ones that go on the website or whatever, and it really did look like structures, like, because there were these really precise like geometrical figures and the way it was laid out and things like that.
And that's really rare in nature. I mean,
Yeah.
it does happen, but straight lines, circles that are accurate, these aren't things you usually
Yeah,
find.
and I'm not saying I believe one way or the other, but
It's interesting.
But the structures that they were pointing at, saying, "Hey, this were there," like it wasn't doctored, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. I would like to look at that a little bit closer," because
Let's fly you to the moon.
one of the stories I had heard was when we first landed there or whatever, some of the original transmissions were that they actually saw beings up there, and they were told to be quiet about it. I don't know that I believe that. I don't in the least bit believe that, but that stuff's always fascinating to me to watch it and listen to it.
I mean, human beings have been around for quite a long time. I mean, not in the grand scheme of things, but our species has been around a while. And it could be possible that we got to spacefaring once before. I mean, there's been enough time. I guess it's possible that we could have done it once before. I mean, we've been around for roughly 250,000 years. There was a big die-off of humanity. We almost went extinct 70,000 years ago.
I think timeline-wise, yes, but why would we not see any evidence that we had before?
Well, how long would it take for that evidence to disappear?
Pretty long time, man. I mean, even our structures now,
70,000 years.
I don't know. You're getting out. This whole subject's outside of my range of expertise.
The only thing I found is that we have been around for a really long time, and 70-ish thousand years ago, a supervolcano erupted and knocked us down to an estimated population of 5,000 to 10,000. And if you took us now and knocked us down to 5,000 to 10,000 people spread out all over the globe, in 70,000 years, how much of this would be left?
Yeah, I mean, with the supervolcano thing, yeah, I could see that. It would have to be buried like deep under the you would start finding. I would think you would find structures and stuff under the earth and things like that.
Well, a lot of them would still be above ground, though. I mean, it dumped like 6 to 8 inches of ash over the entire planet. You know, we went through like a mini ice age or whatever. But a lot of the structures that were above ground would still receive 70,000 years worth of weathering.
Well, I still want to see what's underneath the ice at Antarctica, because they found the ancient maps that actually showed the continent of Antarctica down at the bottom, where before we had thought we had sailed that far, and it showed it as like this beach area, like it had palm trees and shit on it.
Well,
and
it wasn't always down there.
Yeah, I think our climate has changed a lot more times than what we think it has.
We've had a tectonic shift in the last 15,000 years, when Antarctica was a lot further north than it is now.
Right. Well, and I think that I think that actually has a lot to do with like some of the ancient alien stuff, like with the similarities and things, because I think we traveled around the globe a lot more than we think. I mean, it was a long time before we realized that they had come over the
land bridge.
Yeah, the land bridge, and that's how we had kind of spread out. So I think a lot of those cultures and stuff did evolve simultaneously, because they all kind of came from the same areas. And I think the geological shifts in the planet probably were a little bit more drastic than what we think they were. I think one of our problems is as a species, we're too smart for our own good. Like we know exactly what the history of our planet and our species was, and we leave little room in there for change. Like that one documentary that I made you watch
the Exodus
about
one?
the Exodus.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, there's absolutely no evidence for it. But when you play with the timeline,
there's a lot of evidence.
There's a lot of evidence, but you cannot play with the Egyptian timeline, because it is literally set in stone when certain things happened. So I think there's a lot of that going on, and it leaves these big gaps that we either have to say God did it or aliens did it, just because we...
Why are we all... It seems like every person is just adverse to admitting, I don't know. None of us know.
We forgot.
That doesn't mean we're going to say it's God or aliens. How about we just don't know? Why is that not an acceptable answer? We don't know yet.
A lot of people fear the unknown. I mean, just as a matter of course. So you got to put something there.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that. But I was looking at my notes here, kind of going back to Ezekiel. That's not even the only thing, because I would say that's probably one of our the oldest like historical text or what is accurate as it is, you know. But there are a lot of examples in our ancient texts that suggest that there was more going on than what we think we know that was going on. Not just in Ezekiel with like his description of the machinery, but you know, the references to like the Nephilim, and basically if you think of that as like a higher species that was hybrid breeding with us, things like that.
That's alien. I mean, it fits the description. Let's say it is angels came down and slept with women. They're still alien. They're not aliens, but they are alien to us.
Right. They may not necessarily be from another planet, or maybe they are, but we don't really understand it at that point in time. So we describe it as this big like religious event. And then I've also seen some like theories that Jesus Christ was actually like an alien being, and that's why he was able to do some of the things that he was described as doing. Like
there's a painting of it.
This isn't the butt painting you were talking about, is it?
No, it's not the butt painting. Although that one is definitely worth mentioning. No, this one it's Peruvian hill carving in the 6th century, and Peruvian. No, that's the wrong one.
Peruvian. That's where I get my
anyway,
drugs.
It's basically it's a painting from a well-known artist at the time, and it's depicting Jesus healing people. But if you look up in the sky, there's basically this saucer-like object beaming energy down to Jesus.
Well, that's, I mean, in the Bible, he talks about the light coming down, like when he was baptized and stuff. That's interesting.
That sounds like John Travolta in Phenomenon.
Steven just watched that the other day. That's funny.
It's aliens. It's
There
parallels.
are lots of Renaissance paintings with weird crap in them. Like one of them where Jesus and God are looking at Sputnik for some reason.
Well, speaking of like artwork, there's the one there's the relief that's on the top of King Pakal of the Mayans, the sarcophagus lid, where he's basically in the machine or whatever, and they think he's like in a rocket ship, like going up to space. And then, you know, it was a long time before we could actually translate Mayan text. It was a Russian linguist that actually figured it out, and it took him like 6 years to actually translate the top of it. And even then it was like nuts, because it was like the text was basically saying, you know, we were sending you off into the universe, blah, blah. Like it was real like ambiguous the way it was translated. And if you actually look at this picture, like it looks like there's like little knobs and levers. He looks like he's in a spaceship. But after they went back to the people and said, you know, like, what does this mean? They said, no, it's the life-giving tree, and he's falling into the underworld. And they disputed the ancient alien thing, but it doesn't look anything like a tree. The texts don't really relate to it as well as the way it was kind of explained. And so I always thought it was like a really interesting one to kind of look at, but mainly because like it's like a relief of like a grown man like laying there on this like thing, but the way the seat is positioned and the way his hands are like around these different parts, you're derping out on me. It looks like he's like turning knobs and like navigating.
Tired. It's not you.
Yeah.
I had a busy day.
Another cool one that came up was the descriptions of Atlantis actually relating to ancient aliens.
I don't know anything about Atlantis, actually. Like,
well, I mean, you know, it's a missing continent. Other than that,
I
but
thought it was a city.
No, it's a whole. It was a whole
Is that
continent.
Futurama? I'm thinking the lost city of it.
That's the last city of Atlanta.
Yeah, where the Coca-Cola factory.
Well, I
made
mean,
of
there
all-
was the city of Atlantis on Atlantis. You know, it could have been like the capital. You know, it's,
So you think a whole continent just went missing?
well, it was written about by Plato, and it was a cautionary tale about like Greek. It was almost like the story of Babylon. You know, it was a cautionary tale about how to live and things like that. And basically, it got like destroyed in this big disaster. But a lot of the things that were described about Atlantis were like weirdly specific for just being this like moral tale, like it was an actual place. Atlantis had developed its own power source, and the way the way the descriptions were was it almost sounded like fusion or nuclear energy, but back during Plato's time.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence to show that the place actually existed. So many people have gone looking for it, and a lot of people think they've found it. The story was modeled off of just this like one like little place that a tidal wave basically like took them out because they picked a horrible.
Your mom said Lemuria is lost too. I've never heard of that one either.
Lemuria, I don't know.
I'm gonna look it up. You go ahead and.
Yeah, that's a new one to me.
Steven, you know any lost continents?
I've just heard about Atlantis and where they think it might be, or
where do they think it might be?
At first, they thought it was in the Mediterranean because there have been times when the Mediterranean was really low. There was times when it was completely dry, but they also think that they traced it down to a couple volcanic islands that have sank way in the past. Or there's also some people who just assume that it's under the ice in Antarctica. That it's not necessarily lost. We just forgot where it was.
So this is about Lemuria. For decades, scientists offered wild theories about the fabled lost continent of Lemuria in the Indian Ocean. Then in 2013, scientists actually found some evidence.
Is that the one where they have that really, really old temple and
That's
it's on the beach, and then they've got 3 more temples underwater?
That's Zelda.
Is it?
Yeah, that's the most horrible temple to try to.
Back in the mid-1800s, a few scientists working from scant evidence decided there must have been a lost continent in the Indian Ocean, and they called it Lemuria. They think there was a race of now extinct humans called Lemurians that had 4 arms and enormous hermaphroditic bodies, but nevertheless are the ancestors of modern-day humans. And as absurd as all this sounds, the idea flourished for a time, both in pop culture and some corners of the scientific community. Of course, modern science has long since debunked the idea of Lemuria altogether. But then in 2013, geologists discovered evidence of a lost continent precisely where Lemuria was said to have existed, and the old theories started cropping up again. It's interesting.
Isn't the Indian Ocean's is the smallest of the major
seas? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think how big Lemuria would have had to be to be classified as a continent and still be able to sink.
Lemuria theories first became popular in 1864 when British lawyer and zoologist Philip Lutley Sclater wrote a paper titled The Mammals of Madagascar and had it published in the Quarterly Journal of Science. Slater observed that there were many more species of lemur in Madagascar than there were in either Africa or India, thus claiming that Madagascar was the animal's original homeland. Moreover, he proposed that what had allowed lemurs to first migrate to India and Africa from Madagascar long ago was a now lost landmass stretching across the southern Indian Ocean in a triangular shape. This continent of Lemuria, Sclater suggested, touched India's southern point, southern Africa, and western Australia, and eventually sunk to the ocean floor. How does something sink to the... Because we all know that it's because there's mountains under the ocean. It's not like there's just a big space and we're floating on top of them. Like, how does something sink that far?
Well, I guess it could be from...
The structures would have to...
Ice.
From what, Stephen?
You have a really big ice age, a lot of ice, and all that water's got to come from somewhere.
But the structures would still be there. It's or the remnants of the structures.
I mean, we don't always make stuff to last.
Yeah, I was writing a book for a time about it's in the future and humanity has basically been destroyed, and it's 60 years from the point of our destruction. And it ended up with a lot of research on what would still be around and what they would have to make themselves. Pretty much everything just gets eaten by...
that Life After Humans show.
Oh, yeah, I watched a lot of that.
I was just about to bring that up. I love that show because it
was trying to find the evidence. Fast forward to 2013. Any scientific theories of a lost continent and land bridge responsible for the migration of lemurs is gone. However, geologists have now discovered traces of a lost continent in the Indian Ocean. Scientists found fragments of granite in the ocean south of India along a shelf that extends hundreds of miles south of the country towards Mauritius. On that place I can't pronounce, geologists found zircon, despite the fact that the island only came into being 2 million years ago, when, thanks to plate tectonics and volcanoes, it slowly rose out of the Indian Ocean as a small landmass. However, the zircon they found here, what?
No, just these names. I feel like I'm listening. I feel like I'm listening to a StarCraft novel.
Zircon or whatever, it's an element. It's like a. Anyway, it dated back to 3 billion years ago, eons before the island had even formed.
Billion.
What this meant, scientists theorized, was that the zircon had come from a much older land mass that long ago sunk into the Indian Ocean. Sclater's story about Lemuria was true, almost. Rather than call this discovery Lemuria, the scientists proposed the lost continent Mauritia. Based on plate tectonics and geological data, Mauritia disappeared in the Indian Ocean around 84 million years ago, when this region of Earth was still turning into the shape it holds today. I don't know. But that's interesting, Julie. I had never heard of that before. I need a laptop to look things up. I do, but I don't have a laptop.
But it's interesting that you brought up that, you know, it was thought, oh, they had like 4 arms and stuff like that.
Because that's Ezekiel stuff and angels.
Right. It all kind of fits into that same description and would kind of tie back to like the ancient aliens thing. So I wonder if maybe there was an uprising. There were ancient aliens here and they were our overlords and we were supposed to mine gold for them.
And we pulled in America in 1795.
Yeah.
We're like, F you. We do what we want, and then we killed them all.
Yeah, we sunk their continents. That'd be one way to do it. One of the things I find hard to really cement me into, like, saying that the ancient aliens thing, there's almost no physical evidence now, and you can say it's ancient or whatever, but if they were advanced enough to, like, visit us and fly around and stuff like that, there's not a lot of good solid evidence now that we're still visited because of all the cases of like UFO abductions and sightings and things like that. I think there is a lot of good evidence for unidentified objects that they get spot. I mean, those are well documented, especially like the Stephenville one.
You don't conflate all UFOs with aliens. Though, like you said,
right.
We don't know what they are. That's why they're UFOs.
Right. But all but 2 specific cases I've seen of like contact. None of them are convincing. Travis Walton not convincing. Roswell, it was a spy balloon and we didn't want to say it.
Well, and after listening to Travis Walton speak, I went and saw him speak at Dragon Con 10 years ago. He sounds like a freaking nut job.
And most of them do. And I say all but 2 examples.
What's the Betty and Barney Hill one?
That's one of the examples, and the only reason because the story sounds completely nuts.
Sorry.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. The story sounds completely nuts, but she did do the star, supposedly in the whole thing, and we covered this before, but supposedly during the encounter, they showed her some star maps or something to show them where they were from or whatever, because they were communicating with her. She reproduced that star map, and it led to the discovery of some new stars.
Yeah, was it last podcast on the left that Allie had just gotten into, and we were listening to their episode on Betty and Barney Hill, and I never heard of it before that.
Why don't you buy her a laptop, Matt?
What's wrong with my phone, man?
I thought you did fine. Everybody's a critic.
I just suck. I'm sorry I suck.
Yeah, we're sorry we're not good enough for you. We'll try to do better in the future. We really want to live up to your standards.
You're such a jerk.
Yeah, I know.
People are going to think you're being serious.
I am.
Oh, my God.
I'm completely serious.
I believed him.
See, even the guy on the phone. No, Betty and Barney Hill, they got kidnapped. They had a tussle. Apparently, Betty Hill just like whipped an alien's ass, and then they told. Oh, and I think part of the story is she like gave him her recipe for meatloaf or something.
Yeah, it was some weird shit.
It's this totally crazy story. But there was this. She had drawn out like a star chart or something that was beyond our capability to see with like our current telescopes.
So it's like in the late
like
50s, early 60s.
Yeah. And then as like technology progressed, it was like, oh, there really is that specific like
Well, but there's also the thing we
configuration.
mentioned before, where if you go far enough into the universe, you'll find it.
Yeah. The other one that I always found really weird is the Rendlesham incident over in Russia, and the documentation is a little sketchy, but there were multiple witnesses that saw this like spaceship like land out in the woods.
What year was it? Like how long ago?
70s, something like that.
It was MK Ultra.
It was right at the beginning of home computers. Like this was right before we had personal PCs in the house. So that's when that happened. But the area where it supposedly landed, they went. It goes like off the meter on a Geiger counter. It was totally radiated. But one of the people that was there at the incident said they touched the side of the spacecraft, and their head was like flooded with visions, and they couldn't get it out until they wrote it out, and it ended up being just dashes.
And that's how a new religion gets started, folks.
Yeah, it was like lines, empty squares, and full squares, and it turned out to be after years and years and years of people like looking at it trying to break the code, it turned out to be the first multiplex binary code. But the guy had no previous coding experience that anybody knew about. Could have been a hoax. I mean, anybody can learn and invent. So I mean, no, people still can't break the codes of the Zodiac killer. So, I mean, don't underestimate people, but it was really interesting.
What was the name of that documentary, Matt? I'm curious now, because aliens aren't really my thing, but I'm starting to find it kind of interesting.
I always like to be brushed up on a good conspiracy, whether I believe it or not.
And it sounded super, it still just sounds super out there to me, like so much more than, not that the aliens exist, but that they're coming here and just like picking up humans and then just dropping them back off.
And putting stuff in their butt.
Fun conspiracies, like the Black Knight satellite that's sitting around our Earth monitoring us to see what we do.
What is it?
It's this thing in the sky, they call it the Black Knight satellite. It's been there for a while, and then nobody knows how it got there, or they think that that's the Black Knight satellite, and they find objects that are orbiting the planet. It could be satellites, it could be debris from something, but they've got a static image of it, and it looks like kind of like a twisted black obelisk looking thing. And they say it's up there, and they say it's watching us.
It's like 2001 style.
Well,
I'm waiting for the government to just like crash in through the window now.
We have you now.
That's the main way the government communicates with the aliens on the other side of space. It's their conduit for their Ansible system.
Oh, yeah. That's what we need. We need the Ansible.
They were going to use that to talk to people from the past and the future.
I don't know. As far back on topic though, I don't. No, we hate being on topic. I don't know. I think the possibility of ancient aliens is definitely there. But there's not enough evidence for me to like subscribe to it and be like, oh yeah, that's definitely what I think. And it would actually be pretty hard to swing me in that direction too, just because I think there's more evidence to show that we really undersell ourselves as an intelligent species. I think is the big problem in my eyes. And
what about like interdimensional aliens? Like they didn't come from this Earth; they just came from another one that's pretty close.
I think that's a thing. I just don't know that they're tinkering with our evolution.
Because I mean, if we believe that aliens can come from the other side of wherever, millions of light years away,
yeah,
it doesn't seem like it would be. I mean, in that same technological box, then interdimensional travel will probably have to be in there somewhere. So if we believe that some people out in the middle of nowhere can do it, then why not somebody that's right here but slightly to the left?
I'll see your interdimensional travel, and I'll raise you time travel.
Oh yeah, why not time travel?
I was listening to. I was reading
Instead
an
of
article
ancient
about
aliens,
that the other day.
maybe it was us from further in the future, going back AI style.
Yeah, when we start biohacking ourselves to have more arms and androgyny.
I need to find that article I was reading about the two guys in the 40s or whatever that said they went to the future because it was fucking nutty.
40s? Did they go back to the future?
Shut up, Brad.
No.
The lizard people live in the hollow moon.
Hollow moon. Oh my god.
That's a whole other episode right there. The moon is hollow. It is.
Steven, do you think the moon's hollow?
I don't know. It's
It would crash into the earth. It would be too heavy if it wasn't hollow.
It's also stationary when there's no other moon in the solar system that doesn't spin around.
That's not true at all.
Yeah.
Like
I don't
three
know.
of Saturn's
Like
moons are the
moons
same way.
for Jupiter, and maybe one of them's artificial too.
It's got a shitload of moons. Surely one of them.
Or its titanium content's too high. Or
I don't know why the lizard people would live in the moon anyway when they blend in perfectly well here.
Well, that's true, but I mean, you've got to have a base of operations. It's not easy to find, and
Well,
we're not going there anytime soon.
Someone
think-
would notice them going back and forth, I would think.
No,
I think
no,
the,
that's what Black Knight satellite's for.
Isn't Washington, D.C. their hub for... Oh, yeah. Julie, the Anasazi, that's something like I am super interested in. And that was... I talked about the book by Louis L'Amour. Is it
Louis L'Amour?
He did Westerns, but that was like the one sci-fi
Haunted
he
Mesa.
did where the Anasazi went into another dimension.
Yeah, I like that. That's like the only book of his that I can even read.
Yeah, what
it's pretty
they
good.
think happened is the tribe was so small and was having such issues feeding themselves, they disseminated into other tribes.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is they left all their stuff. Like, there's cases where they've left all their stuff. And I've actually been out to New Mexico to some of the Pueblo cities out there, and they're really interesting. But, yeah, some people theorize that they just walked off into another dimension.
Well, I mean, we have abandoned cities now. You mess with the economy enough, you got like empty cities over in Spain and up in Detroit. You just
Well,
go
we
in
got
there
one
and
in
go
Chalk
there.
Mountain that we went and investigated. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
right down the road.
China's infamous for this because
China.
they're paying people to just build, even though they don't need more stuff built, because they're trying to, let people have jobs and
Well,
make
I
money.
love that one we were watching on the Dark Tourist. That entire abandoned island that they just built on top of a
mine, yeah.
mine, and then when the mine stopped being economically
They just
productive,
left it within a
they just
week.
fucking left, and it's like one of the tallest points in the world too, because they built up so
Mm-hmm.
high, and it's just there. Yeah, and it's if it was 1,000 years from now, and somebody looked back there, they'd be like, "Why did these people leave?" Oh,
And aliens.
it must have been aliens.
Well, it's like the Roanoke colony thing. Roanoke is another one you had brought up the other day, where
Right.
they think they were just slaughtered by the Indians and Native Americans, but everyone makes it into this big mystery. It's because people want mystery.
Well, the thing is,
everything's so boring.
Have you ever actually really looked into that specific case? Like if the Indians did attack them and they drug them off and killed them somewhere else, and there really weren't a whole lot of signs of struggle in the area, like they would have had to been ambushed guerrilla style and and
Or
taken like far
they
away.
had made friends with the Native Americans, and the Native Americans were like, "Hey, farming's better over here." So they all left and lived out their happy lives somewhere else, and we just never
What
found them.
fucking world do you live in where we made friends with the Indians over
Well,
here?
I'm saying
I find
one.
it hard to believe that you would get a bunch of people that there would have been not like half the town who were like, I was born here, I'm not going anywhere.
Well, the other thing is, what if they thought they'd made friends with the natives, and so the natives used that to lure them off and murder them?
Okay. I don't believe it's. I find it more efficient just to sell them back their smallpox blankets.
Out of the Blue was the name of the documentary. I'm going to write that down so I can watch it later. Thanks.
Super. Yeah, but there's just not a lot. There's just not a lot of hard evidence for it. And the people that are really pushing this and putting the information out there and being the most convincing about it are somebody that has a degree in sports.
Yeah.
He's definitely selling his way.
Sport information. That's what his degree is. I didn't even know you could get a degree in sports information. And the other guy did prison time for fraud. Actually, I think he wrote part of Chariots of the Gods while he was in prison for fraud. And then, over time, different parts of that book were basically exposed as, hey, you could not have even gone there and saw that thing because you were somewhere else in the world at the time. And later on, he would admit, he's like, yeah, none of that happened. But yet, those are the two biggest ones that are still, everybody's basis. That and the Mars face.
Once you get your foot through the door and you make people believe something, it's really hard to make them not believe that thing.
Well, there's that whole first in information. You tend to kind of glom onto the first bit of information you get as correct information.
Yeah, and then you get your cognitive dissonance where it's been proven wrong, but you don't want to change.
What a dick. Yes, I am.
How you really are.
I know. I would say I'm going to work on it, but that would be a lie. So, any other great ancient alien themed zingers you got for us?
Now, I wish I remembered more of the stuff Jonathan had said to me. Stephen, do you?
Let's see. I think he did reference a lot of the the ancient Hindu faith over in India. How now I haven't looked it up, so I can't confirm it or not. But this is what he said: is that there are depictions in their theology of people running through the skies and things like teleportation and lasers and mentioning people from other planets.
Yeah,
I find it interesting.
Yeah, and it's not even just and I only really reference the Christian Bible, but there are a lot of all the way back to the Sumerian
religious texts. They have
almost
some sort
all
of sky people.
Yeah, and it's funny that almost all religions have like sky people coming from the sky, having something to do with the stars, celestial bodies, things like that. It's more that parallelism that we were talking about. In fact, only a few religions come to mind where it's like the earth elements and things here, but even then, they're still worshiping the sky. You have the Egyptian Ra, the gods that come down from the sky.
I think a lot of it is because they did not understand celestial bodies or why things work the way they work. They're just reaching, and the sky was a big unknown.
Well, reaching's a good word for it because it's out of reach. It's literally something that, if it's here, even if you don't have a scientific understanding of stuff, it's here. There's that plant. You can go, you can touch it. If it hurts, it's poisonous, whatever, things like that. It's tangible. And that's why you get like the fantastic things in the ocean, like the leviathans and
because we don't know what's in there.
Right, we don't know what's in there, and we just see big things like just out of our reach.
Yeah.
So it's got to be the same with the sky. And so I think that's where a lot of that comes from. But that is a good parallel that in even our oldest religious texts, there's this thing for like sky people, and I like the cave drawings where they look like what we interpret as aliens.
So, hey, Stephen, what's your best bet on what ancient aliens actually were? Totally made up, or does it have some sort of truth behind it?
It's hard for me to buy that it was aliens. I'm gonna go side with Brad on this one and go I think we're not giving ourselves enough credit, and maybe some of this stuff that we see is, we have sci-fi, and having somebody write something down that's going to end up dealing with fantastic, you're going to run a lot of parallels no matter who wrote it.
Could you imagine if people came back to, they find a Barnes & Noble 300 years from now, and they read a sci-fi book, and they're like, oh, these people were so advanced.
That's what I was going to say, is at what point is a story just a story? Like, it seems like anything that's that old, we look at it and we're like, this is what they actually believe. This is what actually happened then. And we look at the Old Testament. we factually think that the world was completely covered in water.
And that it was all created in 6 days.
That's completely
Insane.
impossible. Now maybe there was a flood of a region,
I don't
and
doubt there was a flood, but-
yeah, and someone escaped it, and it inspired this like cautionary and they blamed God, or not blame God, but they were like, this happened because these people sucked.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to use God
There's
for the gaps,
instances of
then
those stories in other cultures, so they could just be extraordinarily old stories that have just filtered out through civilizations forever, and somebody just compiled them, and they're like, yeah, this is legit. This is what happened.
Yeah, but even like the horror book I just put out, they're all cautionary tales. It's not stuff that actually happened, but it's inspired by little nuggets of things that gave me ideas to do it. And so 2,000 years from now, that gets found by aliens, or and they're like, oh, this historical... Galaxy Quest. Galaxy Quest, the historical document.
Or they find something like Brave New World, and they think that's the way we actually lived.
Well, we're there.
Except we don't do any of the things in that book.
Not yet.
Oh, I'm thinking of 1980.
1984.
Yeah, sorry.
We're close to babies in jars.
Huxley,
Quite
not
there yet.
not Orwell.
A comic book or two. These must be actual pictures of
They
things
had
that
this
happened.
man from a different planet that used to come and just go through buildings and accidentally kill hundreds of people while trying to save one person.
Matt says pictures or it didn't happen, but that's the problem. Even pictures don't prove anything. Because we can Photoshop anything now.
Not in modern times, no.
Yeah, so... But that's what I worry about with the digital age, actually, is say all this like goes away. Most of our shit's in in the digital world. There's nothing for them to find. So what if that's the problem with ancient species? What if they got to the point of
where everything was saved on technology?
Yeah, what if the Library of Alexandria was actually like saved,
a disc?
It was on a hard drive and they just,
Stomped it?
yeah, they're like, fuck your library, and we lost all that info. Like, that was enough to set us back to the Stone Age because we had gone so digital.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happened to me with my PlayStation. I had this giant library of games, and then I got locked out of my account, and they wouldn't restore it because I didn't have the original credit card that I bought my PlayStation 3 with, like, 50 years ago.
And I had that computer that got hacked, and they took all my stories.
Yeah, it's just gone.
Yeah, it's just gone forever, and I think that's
the only
good
evidence that
possibility.
existed is that we say it did.
Yeah.
That's it.
No proof.
Stories of all the things
oral tradition. Huh. I wonder if we got advanced enough to be digital at some point, and then we lost it all. Because that shit erodes. Electronics erode faster than buildings and things like that. It would just be gone.
Remember, we had a big die-out 70,000 years ago. Nothing we have would still be here.
That's what I'm going with. That's my new theory, that we've already been through the digital age.
But and the survivors were just telling people stories of TV shows they watched, and over hundreds of years, those became our myth and legends.
It's interesting. I mean,
think of you tell somebody the story of Buffy the Vampire Slayer 500 years from now.
Yeah.
That's a religion right there.
It's a religion now.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if you've met anybody that's watched Joss Whedon in the past 10 years, but, they are fanatical.
You shut up. I'm not a fanatic. Joss Whedon's just like a god, and that's factually accurate.
Oh, no. Alien technology lasts forever. Yeah, but I'm talking about our technology.
Yeah, our
I still got
doesn't
3.5
last.
floppies sitting around, but they won't work.
I can have a stack of 8-tracks at my mom's house, but what are they doing for me? They're trash.
Yeah. Oh, no. But yeah, if I had to pick one or the other, I'd say we haven't been visited in the past or influenced by aliens, but I'm not ruling it out as a possibility. I'm just saying all the evidence that's out there right now and all the people that are presenting it are not very credible.
And that's the problem when the face of your theory is the aliens guy, you're not going to do well.
Well, I don't know. We're the ghost people, and we're not. And that's the thing. I try not to throw that up too much. The fact that his education is like in.
Well, yeah, because I'm not educated at all. So if.
Well, it's just, what makes us qualified to investigate
We're not.
ghosts and him not qualified to investigate
I don't
aliens.
think either of us are qualified.
But they're past of fraudulent
Claims,
that's. And the other thing that I don't like is that he presents people think he's an archaeologist. He presents himself as an archaeologist,
Some sort of scientist. I thought he was. I did.
Yeah, and he's a spokesperson, and he's probably, I mean, he went to college, he went to Ithaca, so he is educated.
Yeah.
In the same way that I'm educated.
Who's, the guy from the band you talk about that's now a UFOologist? Is it Blink-182?
Yeah, Tom DeLonge. Oh my God! When I was like, I avoided that like the plague, and he's probably one of the most legit ufologists.
He said he
out
sounded
there.
really level-headed.
He did. I hate the way the headlines present, because like I avoided reading any of those because like Tom DeLonge talks about aliens and blah blah blah, and then I actually watched.
Your music sucks. Why should I trust you on this?
Yeah, and then I watched his like little documentary, and okay, so maybe he's not super educated or anything like that, but what the guy did have is a butt ton of money from playing in a punk rock band, so he was able to basically buy his way into meetings with people that had like top secret clearance. And he has actually found out enough stuff about like the black books and things like that he's like, I actually found some of the answers I was looking for, but now that I have found them, I can't actually say anything about it because it's A, not what you think, and B, there's a reason some of that stuff is classified.
B, the CIA will shoot me.
Yeah, basically.
That makes me even more curious about what they're hiding.
Well, yeah, and he initially went into it as like wanting to be a whistleblower for the whole thing, and then I guess when he found out at least what he could find out about it through monetary means and getting to know the right people, he's like, oh shit, actually I probably shouldn't blow the whistle on this, which makes me think,
it sucks that we're so they can't trust humans because we're such assholes about everything. We're just not trustworthy.
The answer is probably so
it's just benign and boring.
Well, the answer, it's so simple that you've already figured it out 10 times, but you don't want to believe it because it's so secret.
Boring.
But the thing is most UFOs are us testing our own defense products. And to blow the whistle on that before it's out renders it useless. Like, so when in the early 90s, is that when the stealth bomber came out?
I believe so.
Late 80s.
Gulf War,
Yeah, late 80s, early 90s. There was a huge increase of people seeing UFOs because when the stealth bomber flies by, first off, nobody had seen it yet, so that's nobody had seen that shape for a plane. But if you actually see one fly by against like the sunlight or at night, it looks like it's changing shape because it's such an odd design. And so everybody that saw it said, okay, this defies physics. It has to be this alien spacecraft, blah, blah, blah. And the government just didn't say shit about it because they were developing to talk about it then would have rendered it useless because the whole idea was to not show up on, it doesn't show up on radar because it doesn't,
a secret.
it doesn't have any flat edges on it. It's completely rounded, so it won't reflect radar back. And so when that finally came out, they're like, hey, that's what this is. It was like, oh crap, and it explained like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of UFO sightings. And that's probably what he's finding out. It's like he's getting into the button. They're like, okay, you want to see what it is? Come check it out, and come look in the hangar. And he looks at, and they probably have like a plane in there with a sex bot on the front of it or something. And he's like, oh, I can't talk about that because then the Russians will know about our sex bot planes.
When I was 14, I moved from. I lived in Whiskey Flats, but we moved out to Crescent. And I guess where we lived in between Crescent and Weatherford, it backs up to an Air Force base or something. But we would see, first off, they'd break the sound barrier all the time. Second off, we'd see like the triangle planes fly over. We would see all these weird shapes of planes, and we knew it was because we lived next to this base. But if I hadn't known that that's what it was, I would have thought it was aliens because they look so odd.
Right, and I've lived by Carswell all my life. You know, in General Dynamics.
I think Carswell is the one our house
Lockheed.
backed up to.
Yeah, it's just over the lake from us, so I've been used to that for ever.
Well, and back then, people said it was like they weren't doing stuff out there, but they were.
Right.
We're still. It's just none of our business.
Yeah. Matt
Jesse
says, just ask
Ventura.
Jesse Ventura
I don't know who
is
that is.
retarded.
Who is that?
Well,
The wrestler who became a governor?
he was first a Navy SEAL, and then he was a wrestler, and then he was an actor. He's the asshole in Predator. It's like, I ain't got time to bleed. And then he was the governor of Alaska, and he swears they have weather rays that can manipulate the weather out there.
Harp?
The
Like,
HARP program.
yeah.
Yeah,
Harp, I say,
he's
harp is a thing.
He's
They
talked
just-
about that. He's like hardcore Republican.
And a conspiracy theorist, apparently.
He is a fucking nut job, like straight up. He's just like,
What is it with Alaska and hiring voting for morons? Just
I don't doubt that we have some top secret stuff out there. I don't think we have a ray that alters the weather, or we would probably just stop global warming at this point.
Or if we did have one that could change the weather, I wouldn't want anybody knowing about it, because then every time a hurricane hits somewhere, they're like, why didn't you stop that?
America, fix it.
Yeah.
Fix it with your magic death ray of
Well,
weather.
it costs us $14 trillion every time we mess with the weather. Well, too bad. Fix it anyway.
Well, you could just, go back to fracking and have your city sink 15 feet into the ground like Cleveland.
That was kind of cool, though.
People still say that wasn't because of the fracking, yet it's weird how that stopped when they shut that down.
Yeah, all the drills are gone. No more earthquakes.
It must be the aliens.
Aliens wouldn't come to Cleveland. It's the fucking worst town ever. They come down, they'd be like, this place is just awful.
Yeah, but if you were gonna find a bunch of backwoods people to put things in their butt, Cleburne made my first stop. That and Waco.
They do like the crazies out in Waco. Hey, Steven, you went to school in Waco. Was that close to when the Branch Davidian thing happened?
I am not nearly that old.
No, I mean, was it close in location? Was it on that side of...
How is he
No,
not?
I don't think we were. That well, it might have been in like the area of Waco. I don't know if the compound was
Yeah.
near the city proper.
He's old enough to remember it, but what he's saying is he wasn't in college at that time. Because he lived there when he was going to school down there.
Oh.
But
Great college town, but that's all there's there. It's just 3 colleges.
yeah.
And like 8 Walmarts.
So Steven says no ancient aliens, no way, no how. I
I
say
wish it was.
not enough evidence to sway me, but it's possible. It's possible aliens already came. What do you think?
I doubt all alien interaction. I don't think that's the thing.
You don't even think aliens have been here
No,
once?
never.
You don't think they exist?
I mean, I'm sure single-celled, or I mean, if you define it as life exists on other planets, yes, I think
We're
there's-
talking advanced
No.
advanced species. You don't think there's another intelligent species out there?
I doubt there is, and if there is, it's so far away it makes absolutely
I
no
like the
difference to
idea
us.
that they're so intelligent that they don't interact
They
with
got to
us.
follow the prime directive.
Well, they probably think we're so we're idiots. We're destroying our own planet. It's
Or
If-
every civilization hits realistic sex bots and then dies out.
They stop breeding. Well,
Happens every time.
if there is another alien race, why does everybody think we'd be the more warlike of the two? Like, why does everyone assume that we'd be the worst?
I think it's just a self-reflection because we're so bad at it. Through our entire history, we have not had peace for.
But how? Maybe
They
that's just a.
assume that any species that develops the technology necessary to get here would have killed itself if they were warlike.
I guess that I want to know why everyone thinks that aliens would be above.
I think the scarier idea is that we're the most
Advanced.
advanced species in the galaxy or
Oh, that's
universe.
so boring.
Well, who said that? There's either one of two things is true. Either we're alone in the universe, or we aren't, and I'm not sure which is scarier. Both are equally terrifying. Is the end of that?
I think Stephen Hawking said that.
I don't know. I thought it was a sci-fi writer.
Oh well,
I'll have to look. I'll look it up after the
you
show.
ruined it. I
Shut
feel
up,
bad now.
Brad.
Was it Philip K. Dick?
Could have been.
I don't know. Who is it, Campbell, that did the book for The Thing? It Knocks or whatever it was like. Yeah, because Steven, remember we borrowed that book from my dad, and it had the race of people that was run by like robots, and they never had to do anything for themselves. So when the robot crashes, they just start eating each other.
Hi, welcome
that
to
was a
Marital
three-part
Radio.
story.
What about Stephenville? Oh yeah, the Stephenville UFO.
Actually, we got a lot of information. We met somebody that did a really in-depth investigation on that from MUFON.
They actually swayed my opinion. Like
Oh,
the way
I
he
definitely
showed it swayed my opinion on that, because I live close enough to Stephenville that I'd heard people just talking about it, and
Yeah.
it sounded ridiculous. But all his points were really well put together and smart.
He had the radar data,
Yeah.
which I thought was really good. And not once did he say it was alien spacecraft. He just said it was unidentified craft.
Yeah.
He didn't try to sway anybody on aliens or anything like that. He was just showing the facts that there was an unidentified craft that was moving in a way that no known craft
Yeah, and he like
can
went.
move.
He actually contacted the Air Force and got data from them and the local.
I do like that I stumped him with my question though. When
question
I
was
was
that?
well, when he was showing the different, he's like, okay, so this point shows up over here, and then it shows up over here. It would have taken X amount of time for it to get here to here, and I was like, well, who's to say that those two blips are the same object?
Yeah.
And his only answer is like, because those are the only things that weren't radio tagged. Because everything that's supposed to be, but it could be two separate objects in the air that aren't tagged if it was coordinated between two people.
He had also said the Air Force was running some sort of drill that day, but the planes they were flying had gone the complete other direction.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, and he had actually got in contact with like one of the pilots and some local law enforcement that saw the visual anomaly.
It was like the
and-
sheriff that saw
Yeah,
it or something.
and that's what was a little more swaying about that account. Is
because
that
it's always
is there
the
was vi-
idiot drunk redneck. I saw me an alien.
But there was a visual account of what was flying around, so that kind of shoots part of my theory out of the air. But I just remember that my question, he had never gotten it in a group like that before.
So you wanted to brag, is what this is.
Well, yeah. But he accused me of being a radar tech. He's like, what are you, a radar tech? No?
Because you're so smart.
Shut up. Oh, my God. So,
Hashtag
Did it
humble
actually
brag.
disappear and reappear in another location? Or did it actually travel between the two?
so the way radar works is it's over an interval of time. So it'll blip and it'll show
So
you
it's
it'll
on
show you the
the-
location, and then like 5 seconds later or whatever, it'll blip again and then show you the location. And
So if you had like a plane that was capable of active and inactive radar dampening.
no,
No?
not at all. So
Or
it's
two planes with
you
active
don't have with the way radar works is it rotates around, so you don't have constant real-time tracking.
Yeah. It's
So
just- it
you'll
moves.
you get a blip like every 5 seconds, and then depending on where that blip when you're tracking that blip over those intervals, you can calculate the speed that it's moving over time. And the blips had been too far apart to be a speed that known aircraft could
so
fly.
I assume that was the government effing around. Like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Like, I seldom believe in the conspiracies that are going around now, but I think it's absolutely true that our government does commit conspiracies. Like, that's obviously a thing. There are conspiracies.
I think there's a difference between conspiracies and not giving everybody all the information. And the thing is they're doing stuff without us knowing about it all the time. But they absolutely have data on us at all times. They just don't care. We're not doing anything interesting enough for it to even be pertinent. They're not meddling in our...
Oh, Julie, the creaking door. Steven's at my house, and I think he was going out to have a cigarette.
That was actually Andrew bursting in the room.
Oh, that's my son. Never mind. We're lucky we're not hearing them scream at each other. That's what I figured was going to go
I tried
on.
to satiate him a little while before this started.
Given video games.
Yeah.
Because the radar techs are all dicks. Well, then you should be a radar tech. Because you're a dick.
I hear they make pretty good money.
And if you fuck up, you kill just tons of people.
That's what brother-in-law does, I'm pretty sure.
Chris?
Yep.
Huh. Yeah, he's in the Air Force, so.
So anyway, NT Paranormal doesn't think that aliens are really a thing. That's why we don't really investigate them that much.
We also don't think ghosts are a thing.
I think, not ghosts, but there's things that are things. I just don't call them ghosts.
They're
I
other.
want aliens to be real. I think that'd be cool.
I think aliens are real. I don't think they're grabbing up rednecks in the woods and doing experiments on them. I think that they're just a little gay curious, and that's the story that they get. They're like, well, it was aliens.
Maybe it's just their version of cow tipping.
Well, we talked about it like when you take a cat to go get fixed or something, and they knock it out and it wakes up back at home. Is that what they assume happened? Or like when I catch a lizard off the porch, does it just think it was abducted by aliens?
Can you imagine the lizard going back? It's like
this giant creature picked me up and I flew through the air and
it just stroked me for a very uncomfortable amount of time, and then it brought me back. And all its lizard friends are like, why the hell would it even do that?
That didn't happen. You're such a liar.
That's so stupid, Jack.
Why would a human do that? They're not interested in us. I don't even think humans exist. What can you do F, marry, kill on this episode? Steven, what's an F, marry, kill for this episode?
Well,
Aliens?
Yeah.
E.T. Xenomorph Alf.
E.T. Xenomorph Alf. That one's rough.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to kill the xenomorph because it's scary. I'm gonna bang E.T. Man, I don't know. That is hard. I was gonna say I'm gonna marry Alf because he's got Alf money.
Okay, Steven.
And he's getting a reboot pretty soon.
Steven, fuck, marry, kill. E.T., Alf, Xenomorph.
I'm gonna have to also go with killing the Xenomorph because acid blood's never good in any situation. And I would probably fuck Alf. That way, I can definitely find out whether or not I'm into furries. Because I don't want to know, but at that point I would be able to tell. And then I'd probably marry E.T. because he seems like he's got a nice family, other than leaving him behind, which is an honest mistake.
And he's part of the Star Wars canon now.
That's true. Maybe he's got a lightsaber.
He's an ancient alien.
Yeah.
Because he's from a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then he shows up in E.T. in the 80s for Reese's Pieces. He's an ancient alien.
I would marry the Xenomorph and then use it like a weapon against my enemies.
See, they keep trying to do that in every Alien movie, and it keeps not working.
I will be the one who succeeds, she said, like everyone in every Aliens movie ever. Yes, I would marry the Xenomorph. I would kill Alf because he's fucking irritating.
What? Why is he irritating?
And he eats cats. I really like cats. I guess I'd have to F-E-T, but that's gross.
No, because he'd be like, ouch. And you'd be like, no, E.T., stop trying to touch it.
Marry aliens, kill Alf, F-E-T.
That has been our super informative episode on ancient aliens. So I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend.
And if you get abducted, take pictures. Picture it didn't happen, like Matt said.
Absolutely. So, God, I don't even know how to close this show out. It was just a cluster.
I thought it was awesome.
Thanks for calling in, Steven.
Oh, sure, no problem.
Yeah, you were a super informative expert this time.
I'm sure I was.
Well, everybody have a good weekend. What do we have anything coming up?
No, not really. Into September, we've got the Paranormal Expo coming up.
And then the porch panel.
It's not a porch panel anymore, and that's October 19th. That's a ways away. So the next live appearance is actually going to be the Granbury Paranormal Expo last weekend of September. and we're not even out of August yet.
Yeah. Say next week I should have another story up for my Dimension 134B thing. And I believe me and Kristen are going to do the first episode of Strictly Sickly next week. So if y'all want to like that Facebook page so you can see the podcast, that would be awesome. Because, yeah, there's no one on it.
And also, don't forget, we've got the audiobook out now. And actually, oh, yeah, good news is that NT Paranormal After Dark on Amazon hit number 4 for its category. So I'm pretty happy about that. Of course, that's all for the free sales category.
Wow.
Because right now...
Still counts.
You can get it on Kindle and Amazon for free, the digital copy for free right now. And if you get the free digital copy, you get a discounted version of the audiobook to go with it. So if you guys haven't checked that out, now is a pretty good time to do it. And we need more reviews on that to get it higher up in the ranks.
Yeah, so if you read it, leave a review.
Unless it's a bad review, then screw you.
If you have a bad review, why don't you just tell us personally? Because constructive criticism is good, but not in public.
Constructive criticism is great because I can just throw it in the trash.
Oh my god.
Everybody have a good weekend, guys.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks everyone for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did and you would like to know more about NT Paranormal and our research, please visit us at www.ntparanormal.com or our Facebook page at facebook.com/ntparanormal. You can also check out our book, After Dark Paranormal Investigations, True Cases of the NT Paranormal Team on Amazon.com, or find our articles in Paranormal Hauntings Magazine. Before we go, we would also like to thank our supporters at Paranormal Hauntings Magazine, Paranormal Investigations Equipment, PIE, Ghost House Paranormal, the Granbury Paranormal Expo, and the Tyler Paranormal Conference. Until next time, everyone stay safe out there and stay open-minded.